Hello Africa and welcome to Impact Stories on AAU TV. This program seeks to celebrate academic mentors and highlight their achievements in Africa and beyond. My name is Irene Dufiade and I'm going to be your host for today's discussion. My guest today is a special woman, an academic, a consultant and an accomplished entrepreneur who has broken so many boundaries and limitations for women in Africa. She's currently the chair of the African Network of Internationalization of Education, team member of expert of the African Quality Rating Mechanisms of the African Union. We'll go for a quick break, and when we come back, I would introduce to you my special guest. Did you stay tuned?
4 years ago, like most young people, I was clueless as to what I wanted to do and which institution would help me realize a great career. What better place to pursue this dream than Blue Crest College? With state-of-the-art lecture halls and experienced lecturers, as well as equipped computer labs, Blue Crest is indeed the right starting point. With certificate, diploma and degree programs in information technology, business administration, journalism, oil and gas, Blue Crest is the one-stop institute for everyone who is looking to have a great career. Enroll now. Visit www.bluecrest.edu.gh or call any of the numbers on the screen. Blue Crest College. Education for life.
Welcome back to Impact Stories on AAU TV. In case you just joined in, we just started with our conversation. And more info on my guest, she is the current president of the Lawe Open University and also executive board of the African Council of Education in Africa. I am privileged here to have with me Professor Goski Botiako Alabi. Thank you, madam, for joining us.
Pleasure.
It has been a privilege for me to interview you. We have waited so much for this day, and finally we have it. And looking through your CV, I don't know whether we can do justice to the things you've done, but we are going to try. You are, in your profile, you say you are Professor Dr. Mrs. Goski Botiako Alabi. Tell us how you started, because it's very important. You couldn't just get all these names, but you started from somewhere. Can you take us through your childhood, your siblings, your parents, and all of that?
Thank you very much, and once again, thanks for the honor. I think it's grace and a blessing for her to be on AAU TV, on Impact Stories, you call it. Yes, I'm a Ga girl.
Okay.
A Nungwa girl. I come from the coast.
Okay.
My dad is from Nungwa and my mom is from Pram Pram.
Okay.
My grandparents, maternal grandparents, were settlers in Nungwa.
Okay.
Okay. And so I had a very checkered background in the sense that I saw a bit of the middle class kind of, life, living, and I experienced the real slum, ghetto kind of, growing up. So I remember when I was a little girl, my parents had left me with my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, who were settlers and therefore were quite poor as well. My grandfather was an artisanal goldsmith.
Right.
And my grandmother was a petty trader, chop bar operator. My father was a civil engineer.
Okay.
You know, so my father and my mother, my parents had a seemingly middle-class life, and my father was from a royal family as well in Nungwa. So, I mean...
You tasted both lives.
Yes. So, my siblings lived with my parents in Tema, in a story building, in a middle-class community. And I lived with my grandparents.
Why did you do that?
I didn't. It wasn't my choice.
Okay.
It was the choice of my parents, and I don't know why they chose to do that. Always preparation for a particular purpose and a particular destiny, you know. Depending on your destiny, nature would take you through a certain kind of preparation. And looking back now, I knew that nature was preparing me. So we all lived in, you know, one little room, and I had to wake up very early in the morning by 4 a.m. to go dump the refuse. I had to go look for water for the house, and I bathed in the gutter. I'm not talking about, you know, something metaphorical. I'm talking literally. I bathed many days, many years in the open gutter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I went, you know, selling, other people would say hawking, every morning. Sometimes I go with condo, sometimes I go with sugar, you know, or rice, that kind of thing. And I would walk like 7 miles to school every morning. It was a wooden structure. Today it's, you know, it's a little block. Yeah, it's better. But at the time it was a wooden structure where we went to study. And so I walked 7 miles in and out. And I recall that during the vacations, in the evening, in the evenings, when I come back, you know, the, not the lantern, we call it osono. Osono in my language, you know, it's that tin kind of thing with the whatever.
In my language we call it bobo.
Bobo, yeah, you know. So with the bobo, I was sitting out there by the and oranges, and this was where I did my homework every evening.
But your parents were well-to-do.
They were living, listen to me, they lived in a bungalow, no, a story building, in a middle-class community, and my siblings were driven to school in a car.
How many were they?
One was in Datus and one was in Toma Parents at the time.
Okay.
And so this was my story, and normally during the vacations, my father would come get me, you know, to spend a little bit of time with them. And when I go, they had WCs. We didn't have any place of convenience. We need to go to the free range, to the bush, and all of that. They ate in Chinese plates, you know, and bowls. They washed in kitchen sinks, and even at the gate there was a small little, you know, kind of cubicle to store their refuse bin. So it was a complete contrast.
To the life you were living.
Yeah, to the life I was living. I mean, but I knew I was very special, and my grandfather made me believe that I was very special. My father made me believe that I was very special. But one of the things I think that was not different amongst we the children was the fact that we had a very educogenic father. Our parents were very educogenic, because my father knew the power of university education, the power of higher education to break the poverty cycle. So he drummed it up in us, you know. And I remember by the age of 9, I recall very well, because my father would normally give me books to read.
But I still don't understand why you were with your grandparents.
I think that one of us needed to be with my grandparents, and for some reason they chose
the chosen one.
They chose me.
That is very well. But can we talk about your primary education?
Yeah.
Do you still remember these? Are you still in contact with them? Or?
Yeah. In primary school, yes. I'm in contact with a few of them.
Okay.
There is one that we attended the same secondary school, so I'm still in contact with her.
And which secondary school?
Nungwa Secondary School.
Oh, right. Yeah. You were Nungwa. Yeah.
Ablade. We are the royals. Proudly.
Yeah.
Royal. Okay, so yeah, so I remember there is Dinah Tete and her sister. There is Awo.
Okay.
There is John. Oh yes. There is Dominic. So these ones I remember them, and I'm in touch with them.
You went to?
From Nungwa, I went to St. Mary's.
St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what program were you doing in St. Mary's?
I did physics, chemistry, math. Okay. Because that was what my father wanted me to do.
But no, you didn't want that.
No, I wanted to do it. The thing is, my father had given me, at the age of 9,
right.
My father gave me something, whether it was a book or a newspaper, to read about Margaret Thatcher.
Okay.
Okay, and so I had read about Margaret Thatcher at the age of 9, and I read that she did chemistry, and she later did law, and she became, you know, Prime Minister. Yeah. So I wanted to be like Margaret Thatcher. I mean, I just wanted, my father had pumped it into me, my head, and I mean, that's just what drove, it drove me. And so I wanted to do chemistry. It didn't matter what it took. I just wanted to go to the university and do chemistry, and after that do law.
And then become the Prime Minister of Ghana. Probably the President of Ghana. And then right from St. Mary's you would enter into higher education. And who at the time, you said Margaret Thatcher, that would be your mentor, I would think. And aside that, did you have anybody around you who you looked up to?
Yes, there was. There was this woman called, I think, Christine Amwakunuama or so. She was then Minister for Science and Environment. She was pretty, I mean, a typical African beauty. And each time I saw her on TV, I was so inspired because she was a science minister, for goodness sake. And so, chemistry. And so, for me, I mean, I'll be reading her lips as she's talking. So, from afar, she inspired me a lot.
Okay. Let's talk about your university education, coming from the background of Margaret Thatcher doing chemistry. And so you would enroll to also learn chemistry?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, what had happened was that at sixth form that year we didn't do well at all. And this was someone who had been first from primary school. People expected a lot from me. I expected a lot from myself. And then I went into the A-levels and I got 2 E's and a sub.
Oh.
So I entered the university to do what I wanted to do, but I was so broken. I was so devastated to the extent that I got sick and I got paralyzed. I lost my balance. I could not sit, I could not stand, I could not walk.
Because of your results?
Because of my results. And for 3 months, they beat me in bed. It was that bad.
Yeah.
And many people who saw me at the time didn't know that I would survive it. Yeah. I was so devastated. And so I could not go with my colleagues to the university that year.
Yeah.
It was a blessing.
Yeah.
The following year, I was going about my business when I saw an ad in the newspapers,
Okay.
which said that people with 2 passes, 2 E's, University of Cape Coast was inviting them to apply to do a 6-week kind of bridging program,
Right. On the main degree.
on the main degree.
Okay.
So I did. I went, and then we went through the process. At the time, University of Cape Coast didn't even have 10 people who qualified for the mainstream sciences. So there were like
a lot of people.
a lot of us. And how I got into the University of Cape Coast.
And then you went on to do chemistry.
And then I went on to do chemistry. I did physics, chemistry, math for the first year, physics, chemistry, math. The second year and the third year, boom, the first 40 will be selected to do chemistry.
Yeah.
And for me, I have to be among the top 10.
That was your, that was your medicine.
Absolutely. I just wanted to do chemistry. So yes, I got to do chemistry. And then I went into phytochemistry, that's plant chemistry.
Yeah.
I was very much interested in herbal medicines because I had worked with plants.
Right.
I had done my internship for 1.5 years.
Right.
At the Center for at Mampo. And I enjoyed what I did. So I wanted to go into pharmacology. But then there was so much noise about food science.
Right.
Professor Sefadede had made it so attractive, and they would select only 7 people at the University of Ghana. So it was that competitive, and people were like, okay, what about pharmacology? I mean, what are you going to do with it? So yes, I ended up switching from pharmacology to dreaming to food science.
Right, but it's still chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from food science, you went on to master's degree.
No, so I did chemistry for my first
and
degree.
Then the master's was the food science.
I did food science and then field in food science.
That is very well. You had it in University of Ghana.
University of Ghana.
And then when you were going for your PhD, you decided to
into management.
Management to Ghana.
Yes.
To go outside.
I didn't go outside.
Okay.
That is the beauty of it.
Okay.
I didn't have to leave my family. I didn't have to leave my job.
Okay.
I didn't have to leave my position.
Okay.
I didn't have to leave the social things that make me feel, fulfilled.
Right.
I could combine all of that with distance education.
Okay.
For my PhD. The rigor, the quality of it. If anybody wants to test it when it is done properly, he should put them. There's so much research to show the quality of distance education.
Right.
And this is why I feel very strongly that Africa is wasting too much resources. First of all, we are creating artificial barriers for people, and preventing them from realizing their dreams, preventing and forcing them to live
in a certain enclosed space
and go into a certain artificial enclosed space to learn something and come back to implement.
Right.
I mean, I've seen many of my colleagues who have gone abroad to learn chemistry, to learn food science. They cannot, for PhD, they cannot come back. Why? Because for the few who even come back, because they did not study here, many of them are not able to integrate.
Yeah. So we need to jump this question, and I would want to ask, was that the reason for Lawe Open University?
Absolutely.
Right.
See, my experience at A-level, what happened to me at A-level gave me one result. I told myself people should not go through what I went through that pain, because there is no one on earth who can tell me that I was not capable of university education at the time. It was a faulty educational system with a faulty assessment system that judged me wrongly and relegated me to the background. The thing I wanted to mention is that today there are 2 of us that I know who went through this program, who became deans and are vice chancellors.
Right.
Vice Chancellor of public universities and myself, who went through this vast window of opportunity.
Right.
Are you getting the point?
Yeah.
So without that window of opportunity,
where would you have been?
Where would this other Vice Chancellor have been?
Right.
So that was an educational system that was clearly faulty. It condemned people that it didn't have to condemn. And there are people who had, let's say, 6 A's and let's say a D in mathematics, who wanted to go to, let's say, medical school. They couldn't go to medical. What kind of educational system is this? And when this happens, you haven't only wasted a life,
A resource,
but you have wasted all the resources that had been invested in this person. Economies. Look at the gross enrollment ratios of the developing economies. It's about 70. Compared to that of Africa, in tertiary, it's less, just around 10. And yet, we don't want to sit down like the people of America struggle, coming across a Booker T. Washington who says the theoretical kind of education, let's look at what people can do to make a meaning in learning about. So my motivation for creating LAWA is to make sure that, number 1, people are given a second chance. LAWA is a university of a
right, ma'am. We'll go for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue on with what you have done, how you got to the top family lives. And so let's hold on a little bit. Welcome back to Impact Stories on AAU TV, and today we are celebrating Professor Goski Alabi. Before we went on the break, we were talking about how distance education is important to you, and which made you go into opening LAWA University. Let's talk about your work of experience. Where did you start? We know you were with Mampong, you said.
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't work there.
Okay.
I did an internship there. There was a long strike action for a year and a half when I was in the university. And instead of being at home, I decided to go there and, you know, practice what I was studying. And it was very good. But when I graduated, I worked at CSIR for about a year or so. And then I left and went to Food and Drugs Board. I worked there for about 4 years. I was Projects and Research Officer, but Food and Drugs Board opened the world to me. Now, this was what had happened. When I went, I met a very hostile environment, an extremely hostile environment. And then my boss then, my immediate boss then, had given me a schedule for breastfeeding foods. And I remember occasionally people would laugh, nufunsu and all of that, you know. But yes, that was my lunch part. So the first time I had to go for a meeting on breastfeeding, I asked for all the files, and then I read everything that I could read. Then I made my personal notes, came home, went on the net, read a lot about, you know, the whole breastfeeding environment. So when I went for this meeting, I was very active. And then somebody from World Bank or whatever it's, or World Health Organization or something like that, saw me and said,